My name is Miriam Goldstein. I am 68 years old, and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I am a physician, graduated from NYU, and for over 40 years, I have dedicated my life to uniting science and faith, or at least trying to understand where one ends and the other begins. I am an Orthodox Jew. I grew up in the tradition, respecting Shabbat, holidays, and the laws of the Torah. I never questioned what I was taught. Never, until the day it all came crashing down. It was a bright autumn afternoon. I was speaking in the auditorium of a Jewish cultural center in Manhattan. I was speaking about the intersection of spirituality and neuroscience, a topic that has always fascinated me. As I projected an image of the human brain in a meditative state, I felt a sudden dizziness, as if the ground had opened up beneath my feet. The microphone fell from my hand. My legs buckled. And then, everything went black. I collapsed in front of more than 200 people. I don't remember any screams or the noise of the fall, only the absolute silence that followed. I was rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital. They said I had gone into cardiac arrest. My vital signs were gone for exactly 7 minutes. 7 minutes in which, to the world, I was clinically dead. But the truth is that I was more alive than ever. What I saw, what I lived during those 7 minutes, is what I'm about to tell you here. And I ask you, from the bottom of my heart, to listen to me until the end. Not for my sake, but because what happened to me carries a message that can change everything you believe. If this touches your heart, if you feel that something inside you recognizes this truth, please like and subscribe to this channel. It's not about numbers. It's so that more people can receive what you're about to hear. This cannot be forgotten. Later, I'll tell you what I saw, and who was waiting for me on the other side. I didn't see a tunnel. That's what people ask me most. Miriam, did you see the tunnel? The light at the end of it? No. What I saw was something much stranger, much more real. When everything went black, I thought it was the end. But suddenly I realized I was still there, outside of my body. I could see everything around me, as if I were floating near the ceiling of the emergency room. I could see the doctors rushing around. I heard one of them say, "She's not coming back." A nurse was crying, mumbling something in Hebrew, maybe a prayer. I tried to scream, to tell her I was there, but my voice wouldn't come out. I no longer had a mouth, I no longer had a body, but I was still me. I felt a mixture of absolute calm and existential terror. It was like standing in front of a mirror with no reflection. He knew something extraordinary was happening. And then the surroundings began to fade. The walls of the hospital dissolved like mist. I was sucked into a deep darkness, but it wasn't a terrifying darkness. It was a void full of meaning, if that makes any sense. And then, the light. A light so intense, so absolutely pure, that I thought I would disappear into it. It didn't blind me. On the contrary, it revealed me. The light went right through me. Everything I was, every memory, every pain, every fear, every mistake, was there, exposed, but without judgment. It was as if someone were saying to me, "I know you, everything, and yet, I love you." At that moment, I felt a presence. It was not a physical image. It was pure consciousness, total presence. And that presence spoke to me. Not with words, but with immediate understanding, straight to my spirit. And I simply knew who it was. Yeshua. That name echoed within me. Not with scandal, not with resistance, but with a clarity that dismantled me from within. I, an Orthodox Jew, with a lifelong dedication to the Torah, was standing before the one many call Jesus. He came with no crosses, no crowns. There were no Christian symbols, just that overwhelming presence of love and truth. And I cried. I cried like I had never cried in my life, because in that moment, I understood that I knew him, even without knowing it. He didn't accuse me. He just showed me. He showed me moments of my life as if they were scenes projected on a screen, but not to judge me, to remind me of who I was and who I could be. "You have a mission," he said, or maybe I just felt it. "And it's not over yet." And then, he showed me something, A vision, a revelation. His presence was like an endless ocean, and I was a drop that, when I touched him, remembered where I came from. There were no words, but everything made sense. Every doubt, every unanswered prayer, every night of anguish. It was like pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place before me. Yeshua was there, not as the Christian Jesus, as I had been taught to reject, but as someone who had always been there, waiting for me to see. He did not contradict my Jewish faith. He fulfilled it. I did not lose my identity. On the contrary, for the first time, I felt that I truly understood it. He took me, or guided me with his presence, to a different place. It wasn't heaven as I had imagined. It was as if we were outside of time. There was a kind of space of revelation. There, images floated, alive, pulsating. They were visions of the world, but not as we see it. It was like seeing the heart of humanity, the invisible layers of each nation. He showed me Israel, but not the touristic Israel, nor the political Israel. It was the spiritual Israel. I saw the Western Wall, but it was crying. It was raining on Jerusalem, but it was no ordinary rain. It was as if the sky was crying along with the silent prayers of those who still wait. And then he spoke to me again, not with sound, but with inner clarity. They will know me, but it will be in their own time. Those words broke me inside, because somehow I understood that there was a purpose in everything, even the rejection, that the Jewish people still carry a sacred role, even if they don't fully understand it. Then the vision changed. I saw the United States. I saw crowds in conflict, protests, shouts, ideologies clashing. But behind all this, an invisible war, not political, spiritual. And in the center of it, I saw a man. And honestly, I hesitated to say his name, because what I saw is not what most people expect. Vi Donald Trump, but not as a politician. He stood, motionless, surrounded by a storm, and above him, an unquenchable flame. I didn't understand. How could he? He wasn't exactly the model of faith or humility. But then I heard, even those who do not understand their own role can be instruments in my hand. This sentence disconcerted me, because this wasn't a man's exaltation. It was a statement about something bigger, about how God can use the improbable to accomplish the inevitable. I wanted to understand more. I wanted to ask, scream, beg for answers. But Yeshua just looked at me, and in his eyes there was more wisdom than 1,000 holy books. And that's when he said to me, "Now you will see what is coming." And my God, what I saw next was terrifying, beautiful, and impossible to forget. The vision expanded before me as if I were suspended between worlds. On one side, the Earth, our planet, slowly spinning, shrouded in a thin mist. On the other, something that looked like a veil, a spiritual curtain about to be torn apart. Yeshua was by my side, not as a guide, but as a witness. It was as if he was showing me what heaven already knew, what many ignore or choose to ignore. The first image I saw was Jerusalem in flames, but it wasn't a physical war. It was an invisible fire, as if spiritual forces were waging battle above the city's skies. There was a heaviness, a tension, a preparation for something monumental. Jerusalem will be the collision point between the ancient and the eternal, he told me, or rather, made me feel. What has been prophesied is in motion. Soon after, I saw what looked like the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, but the seats were empty. Outside, crowds were shouting, carrying flags I didn't recognize. I saw Jews and Arabs side by side, some crying, others silent, as if they were waiting for something no one could name. And then, he showed me the United States again. This time, I saw churches closed, not because of laws, but because of abandonment, as if people had simply given up looking. But I also saw small groups meeting in homes, in silence, praying sincerely. It was as if faith was changing places, moving from the stage to the heart. And then something hit me hard. Yeshua showed me two ways. On one side, a world in chaos, wars, economic collapses, false leaders emerging, and a kind of peace being announced, but which brought imprisonment and silence. I saw screens everywhere, controlling people. I saw families falling apart, faith being ridiculed, and a kind of darkness that was not an absence of light, but an absence of truth. On the other side, I saw reconciliation, people embracing each other. I saw Jews recognizing the Messiah. I saw Christians returning to simplicity. I saw a spiritual rebirth that began in simple hearts, not in grand events. But the two paths lay side by side, like two seeds sown into the same soil. The future is not inevitable, he showed me. It is a choice. I asked, which path will be taken? And Yeshua answered, with sadness and hope at the same time, it's up to them, and you. I felt an intense pain, because there I understood. I was not there just to see. I was being called to come back and speak. But who would believe me? Who would listen to a 68-year-old Jewish doctor say she saw Yeshua, that she received visions about Trump, Israel, and the end times? The answer was in his eyes. You don't need to convince, just tell. And that's what I decided to do. The vision continued, as if I were watching a great secret being revealed for the first time. But it was not a secret in the human sense, but rather a spiritual enigma, waiting to be understood. Yeshua showed me a map of the world, but not like the one we see in geography books. It was like an illuminated chessboard, with some nations shining brighter than others, not because of power or wealth, but because of spiritual influence. Two lights in particular were pulsing brightly, Israel and the United States. I saw Israel as an ancient flame, small but eternal, a flame that never goes out, even in the fiercest winds. I saw the Jewish people divided between those who still await the Messiah and those who have silently recognized him. I saw a bridge being built, not of stone, but of revelation, a reconnection between the promises of Abraham and the name many fear to pronounce, Yeshua, and then the United States. I saw a wounded eagle, flying low, almost touching the ground, but still alive. I saw attacks coming from within, not without, lies, divisions, moral confusion. I saw schools teaching emptiness and families losing their sense of the sacred, but I also saw resistance. Small groups, scattered throughout cities and towns, prayed in silence. Young people sought answers that were not available on social media. I saw elderly people with open Bibles on their knees, weeping in repentance. It was as if a silent sound was rising from the earth and reaching to heaven. Descent in Yeshua. This nation was born with a purpose, not of domination, but of protection. I don't understand. Protection from what? And then he showed me something that gave me goosebumps. I saw the United States as a shield between Israel and the rest of the world, a shield that holds back the chaos for longer, a shield that, if it falls, paves the way for something much darker. I saw leaders being raised and torn down. I saw ordinary people becoming beacons of truth. I saw that power from now on would no longer be in palaces, but in hearts. And I heard, there is still time, but time is running out. I felt a tightness in my chest. It wasn't fear, it was responsibility, because I understood that each of us is part of this, even without realizing it. Maybe, as you hear this now, you are remembering something, feeling something, a memory, a calling, a restlessness. Don't ignore it. If something in you is awakening, write in the comments what you felt. Sometimes your experience can touch someone who is in the silence of despair, and you have no idea how important that can be right now. I hesitated. When I heard his name, I confess I felt uncomfortable. As a doctor, as a Jew, as someone accustomed to seeing the world through the eyes of logic, associating any spiritual role with Donald Trump was disconcerting. But Yeshua did not speak with contempt, nor with exaltation. He simply showed me. And what I saw went beyond politics. The vision took me to a desert. I don't know exactly where, but the land was dry, the sky heavy. In the center, there was a figure with his back turned. It was Trump. He was holding something in his hands, a lit torch. But what caught my attention most was the wind around him. strong, merciless, trying to extinguish the flame. And yet, it remained lit. He is not the Messiah. But he was chosen to hold a station, Yeshua told me. He continued, he was called to hold a door until others are ready to enter. I saw crowds surrounding him. Some cheered him, others hated him, but few understood him. And then I realized he was not a symbol of perfection, but of interruption. He came to interrupt a sequence, a plan, a subtle advance of darkness that had been infiltrating for decades, camouflaged as progress, tolerance, freedom, but which in reality was slowly erasing faith, truth, and discernment. I saw that even without understanding his role, Trump was being used to slow down this progress. He was like a stumbling block in the path of something that would have come with greater force if he had not been stopped. Yeshua also showed me that this is not about political idolatry. That was clear. It is not about defending or following a man. It is about discerning what is behind certain movements. When the world expects kings, I use servants. When the world expects saints, I use imperfect ones, because I do not look as man looks. Those words broke me. I saw scenes from the past. I saw prayers offered by unknown women behind the scenes of American history. I saw simple men, forgotten by the media, crying out for a second chance for the nation. And I saw those prayers coming together like invisible threads around Trump, not because of his merit, but because God heard the cries that few see. And then I saw a date. I was not told what, but I am told that something will be required, a choice, a national decision, and that his role as an interruption will come to an end. What comes next will be up to us. Yeshua looked at me tenderly. He is not the center, but the time he sustains is sacred. I stood silently. My heart was breaking, because everything I believed about faith, politics, identity, and truth was being rewritten before my eyes. The light around Yeshua began to pulse differently. It was no longer the loving calm that had enveloped me at first. Now there was urgency, a quiet heaviness, as if the sky were counting down. You have seen the signs, he told me. Now you will see the choice. Suddenly, I found myself at a fork in the road. Two paths, two destinies, both possible, both real. The first path was bright, not because of the absence of pain, but because of the presence of meaning. I saw communities united. I saw parents and children praying together. I saw schools teaching eternal values. I saw Jews and Christians reconciling in the name of truth, recognizing their common roots, not in hatred, but in revelation. I saw America as a tree, whose spiritual roots were being watered again. There was struggle, yes, but there was hope, truth, life. The second path was different. At first, it seemed like peace, clean cities, advanced technologies, rehearsed speeches about equality, tolerance, progress. But something was wrong. People walked around with their heads down, their eyes empty. I saw faith being treated as a disease. I saw the Bible being rewritten. I saw freedom being traded for security. I saw love being regulated. And above all, I saw silence, a deadly silence. It was a world in which man had rejected heaven without realizing it. Yeshua told me something that resonates with me to this day. Free will is the most sacred gift, but also the most dangerous. I saw that it was not a political decision, nor a war between religions. It was a choice of soul, of identity, of destiny. And I realized that the line between the two paths was getting thinner and thinner. But what can change that? I asked. Yeshua showed me something simple, and at the same time, powerful. I saw a woman kneeling beside her bed. I saw a father asking his son for forgiveness. I saw a lonely pastor praying quietly. I saw a rabbi reading from Isaiah and crying. I saw a young woman handing her cell phone to her mother and saying, "I want to start over." And then, he said, "It is not the great who move the heavens, it is the sincere." I remained silent. I felt the weight of humanity on my shoulders. But I also felt hope. Because despite everything, we are still here. We still have a voice. We can still choose. And maybe that's why you're hearing this story now. I wanted to stay. When I saw the two paths and understood the gravity of the choice that hung over humanity, my soul was filled with a desperate urgency, and, at the same time, with a peace that I had never experienced in life. There, in that space between time and eternity, nothing that worried me in the world made sense. No bills to pay, no academic title, no opinions of others. There, only love mattered. Yeshua looked at me. His face, still bathed in light, conveyed a compassion that was impossible to describe. It was as if he felt every beat of my heart, every memory of my childhood in Brooklyn, every prayer I had said in secret, every pain I had kept hidden so as not to worry my children. "Let me stay, please," I begged. And he just said, "You already know the answer." At that moment, I understood that what I had been shown was not just for me. It was a mission, not like the ones I had known in my academic or community life. It was a mission that burned inside me, one that would make me lose everything, maybe even my reputation, but that could not be ignored. You will come back. You will tell. And you will suffer. But you will not be alone. Those words still resonate with me to this day. Then I felt something pulling me, as if time itself was sucking me back in. The light began to recede. Yeshua didn't disappear. He just stood there, staring, as if promising he would be there. Always. I screamed. I tried to hold on to that peace, that place, that look, but it was too late. Everything turned to darkness. And then, the sound, an insistent beeping, voices, running. I felt my chest hurt, as if a huge weight was crushing me. I was back. I woke up in the hospital bed with tubes, sensors, and wide eyes staring at me. The nurse who had been crying before was now crying again, this time with joy. A doctor dropped his clipboard on the floor, and one of the technicians who was assisting me said, her voice shaking, "She came back. She came back." I couldn't speak, but I cried. I cried about everything. I cried about what I saw. I cried about coming back. I cried because I knew that everything was about to change. Over the next few days, I tried to pull myself together. Physically, I was fine. Miraculously fine. But my mind, my soul, they were somewhere else. It was as if I had lived a second life and was now caught between two worlds. The doctors couldn't explain it. 7 minutes without heart activity, no pulse, no neurological response. And yet, there I was. My eyes were open. My consciousness was intact. My body was stable. They said it was a miracle, but they didn't mean it, because miracle is a dangerous word in science. It dismantles certainties, and that, for them, was uncomfortable. For me, it was just the beginning. I stayed in the hospital for 3 more days. During that time, I didn't tell anyone what I saw. How could I? I was a respected doctor, an Orthodox Jew, with grown children and grandchildren. What would they say if they knew I claimed to have seen Yeshua? That I had received visions about Israel, the United States, Trump, and the end times? It would sound like madness. Or worse, treason. But I knew I couldn't keep quiet. On the 4th day, I was discharged. I went home, but I was no longer the same. Something inside me had died and been born again. My children came to visit me. Rachel, the oldest, hugged me tightly. And when she looked into my eyes, she said, "Mom, you look different. What happened there?" I smiled, but I didn't answer. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table. I grabbed an old notebook and began to write. Every detail, every vision, every word. It was as if my hand no longer belonged to me. The memories came back with frightening clarity. Time there was different, but here, everything was still real. The following Saturday, I went to synagogue. I wore the same headscarf, the same modest clothing, the same firm walk. But inside, everything screamed. During the service, as the rabbi read from Isaiah, my eyes filled with tears. It was as if the text, which I had so often read in ritualistic form, was now shouting the truth. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows. The words pierced my soul, and I knew. It was him. It always was. After the service, I approached the rabbi. I respectfully tried to share some of what I had experienced. He listened to me for a few minutes, then frowned. "Miriam, do you know what you're saying?" "I know, and I know it sounds absurd. That's dangerous. It's heresy. Don't repeat it." And he turned his back. In the days that followed, I tried to tell close friends. Some said it was post-traumatic delirium. Others suggested I see a psychiatrist. One of them, who I had shared coffee with for 20 years, blocked me on his cell phone. It hurts, a lot. But in the midst of the pain came confirmation. Because what Yeshua told me was true. You will tell, and you will suffer, but you will not be alone. And I'm not. If you are listening to this right now, if something inside you is restless, perhaps even confused, but alive, know that there is purpose in this. You are not alone. You are part of this story too. I found myself alone, even surrounded by people, relatives, colleagues, friends from decades ago. There was an invisible distance that no one could cross. That experience had left a mark on me in a way that human words could not explain. It was not just a memory. It was a constant presence, as if I had brought a piece of the other side with me. I tried to rationalize. I tried to keep quiet. I even considered keeping everything to myself and moving on with my normal life. But what is normal after you die for 7 minutes and talk to Yeshua? I spent weeks locked up at home. The phone rang less. Messages became rare. The community, which had been so present before, now looked at me with wary eyes. A friend even said, "Miriam, you need to come back to reality. You're losing yourself." But that wasn't it. I wasn't losing myself. I had found myself. One morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The sun hadn't even risen yet. I sat in the living room chair and closed my eyes. A phrase echoed inside me. "You don't have to convince, just tell." I got up, went to my bookshelf, and picked up the notebook where I had written everything. It was there. Every vision, every word, every feeling. I looked at it and thought, if I am going to suffer, let it be for the truth. I searched for hours on the internet. Religious channels, alternative media outlets, spaces where maybe, just maybe, someone would listen. Until I found a smaller channel with videos about near-death experiences. The host had a respectful attitude, and the comments were full of gratitude. I sent an email with an excerpt of my story. Nothing special, just the beginning. I thought, if they don't respond, it's okay. At least I tried. 2 days later, I received a response. "Dr. Miriam, your story left us with goosebumps. We would like to record a video about your story. Can we talk?" I was paralyzed. It was the first time someone had taken me seriously. And more than that, I wanted to share. We set up a video call. The guy, a man in his 40s named David, listened to every word with tears in his eyes. When I finished, he simply said, "This needs to be told, not by views, but by mission." We recorded. Simple, without a script, just my voice, my truth. A week later, the video went live. And then, something happened. Messages started coming in. Comments from people I'd never met, from different states, even from outside the US. People who said, "I felt something when I heard you." Others said, "I went through something similar, but I never had the courage to tell you." And many, many people said, "Now I understand." The pain of isolation began to dissolve. I was no longer alone. Others were awakening. And I was fulfilling the mission. The video went live on a Thursday night. When I went to bed, it had just over 1,000 views. When I woke up, the number had tripled. And what impacted me the most was not the numbers, but the messages. People I had never met, from states I had never even seen, wrote to me as if they had been talking to me for years. "Miriam, your experience has awakened me. I cried listening to you. For the first time, I felt my soul recognize something that had always been there. Some called me a prophet, others a heretic, but everyone was listening." On the third day, the video reached 100,000 views, and then the pressure began. David's channel received a warning. The video was being considered sensitive content. Monetization was cut. Distribution was reduced. A week later, it was taken down, with no clear explanation. David called me, shaken. "They don't want this message to get out." "But it's already spread," I replied, "and they won't be able to erase it." He decided to republish it on another platform, less well-known but more open to freedom of expression. And it was there, in digital anonymity, that the flame spread most strongly. People began translating my story into Spanish, Hebrew, and French. I received invitations for interviews on Christian radio stations, spirituality forums, and even progressive Jewish groups. Some listened to me with curiosity, others with suspicion. But no one remained indifferent. The story took on a life of its own. And then something even stranger happened. A man who identified himself as a former security guard got in touch. He said he had seen the video by chance, or perhaps not by chance, and that he needed to warn me. "Miriam, you are dealing with something bigger than you can imagine. There are interests that prefer the world to remain asleep." I asked him to be direct. "Do you want to silence me?" He didn't answer. He just said, "Protect yourself and keep going. They fear what you carry, truth with courage." I confess that I was afraid, not for myself, but for my children, my grandchildren. I thought about retreating, stopping everything. But every time I considered silence, the image of Yeshua came back to my mind. The mission is not over yet. The video, even though censored, reappeared in new profiles, new accounts, new formats. The people who were waking up became the echo of the message. And in the midst of all this, something told me that time was running out, that a collective decision would be required, not by vote, not by manifesto, but by something more intimate, the heart. I knew I didn't have much time. I'm not talking about death. My tests were perfect. The doctors said I was a miracle, but inside, I felt it. Time was no longer the same. Each day was a whisper from heaven. Each hour, an opportunity. I began to live as if saying goodbye calmly. I hugged my children with more intention. I listened to my grandchildren more quietly. I looked at the sky as if reading an ancient text. And I wrote. I wrote a lot. In notebooks, on loose papers, in notes left inside books. But there was one letter I needed to write differently. Just one. The last one. I wrote it calmly, by hand, as if I were sewing my soul into words. It was short, but to the point. And in it, I left what Yeshua had entrusted to me. Not as an oracle, but as a woman who had seen the other side and returned. If you're reading this, it's because I'm no longer visible. Maybe I'm gone. Or maybe I'm just out of sight. I have seen what you will yet see, and I do not write to convince, but to remind. The world is about to choose, but the choice will not be collective. It will be individual. You will be pressured to keep quiet, to follow the majority, to doubt what you feel deep down in your soul. When this happens, remember what I heard from Yeshua. The truth does not shout. It remains. Hold on to your faith as if it were the last candle in a world of darkness. Because maybe it really is. I left this letter on the shelf, between two old Torah books in my Brooklyn apartment. And then, I disappeared. There are no official records. My name is not listed as missing. I simply stopped answering. My cell phone was found turned off. My documents were untouched. And the last security camera shows me leaving the house with a small backpack and a calm smile. There was no fuss, just silence. But history, it did not remain silent. Today, there are copies of my story in several languages. Independent channels still tell my story. And even though many doubt it, mock it, or try to erase it, the truth has found its own paths. If you've made it this far, know that this is not the end. It's the beginning. Now the message is with you. You also have a choice. Will you be silent, or will you become an echo? If you've made it this far, it's because this story spoke to you in some way. So don't stay silent. Subscribe to the channel now to receive more impactful stories like this one. And if this message touched your heart, comment below. I choose the truth. This will show us that you were with us until the end, and more than that, it will inspire others to wake up too. Don't forget to leave your like. It helps this story reach even more people who need to hear this message. Now, watch the next video that appears on your screen. It could be the continuation of what God wants to show you today.